Okay, here we go.
Okay, hey, it's 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. Call to order. First up, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, there we go. Okay, first up is approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda. Do we have to?
The only thing I think Chris told us is we won't have student board members, so we can take out G2.
Okay, yeah. So I move to approve the agenda of removing G2.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next up is staff recognition. Andy Nelson, David Becker Outstanding Music Educator Award. This is coming a little late. Are we going to get him up here and take photos, or what's the plan?
If you could give me just a second, Board Chair, I'd like the opportunity to read a little bit about
Please
Andy
do.
Nelson and his award.
We got to talk him up.
That's pretty easy to do.
Yep.
In an effort to honor the accomplishments of staff members in the Greater Albany Public School District, we have the chance to recognize the achievements of Andy Nelson, the band director at North Albany Middle School. Each year, the Oregon Music Educators Association names an outstanding music educator based on a nomination by their peers. This year at the 2025 Oregon Music Educators Association Conference, Andy was recognized as the 2025 David Becker Outstanding Music Educator of the Year. I'd like to share a few short excerpts from his nomination. He is an exceptional teacher because he can look at a classroom filled with 50 middle schoolers and see each kid as an individual with their own unique passions, interests, fears, anxieties, or distractions, but all with the same desire for love and acceptance for who they are. Many current Oregon band teachers were products of Andy's outstanding teaching and guidance. Andy drives to musical excellence, outstanding content and teaching methods, fun personality, and endless energy have touched thousands of students throughout the state. I hope you can all join hands and welcome Andy Nelson to the stage and recognize his exceptional work tonight. Turn this way to your right. Becca wants to get a picture.
Okay. Well-deserved award. He's done outstanding work in our district for, I believe the correct term is decades. Yeah, that's what I was going to guess, but I wasn't 100% sure. All right, district leadership team updates. First up, superintendent report.
We had board business before that, Mr. Morse?
What now?
You went to F, skipped E?
Board business?
Yeah.
Okay, board business. Anything on there?
Okay. I thought that was where they spoke.
No, board reports are G.
Okay. We have an overhead. We have it on the screen. We'll talk just a little bit about the ending of the session. Last week, of course, we did 3 graduations, and probably one of the coolest things are the graduating seniors returning to their elementary schools, their feeder schools, and walking through. I thought that was really powerful setting, and that was really great. Yeah,
Well, I'm not
you're
missing-
gonna have to turn
I'm
around.
not missing much. I think I know who you are. and
Okay,
spell it.
yeah, we're good. And so, as we close out the end of the school year, I just really want to congratulate the 3 high schools for the great ceremonies and the recognition of the students. And we'll move on to the next slide. So the legislature is imminent to end the session. It is a time where basically most of the bills have died that went to either houses and couldn't make it through. The Ways and Means Committee sits on a couple more key bills, and I'll let Jane talk a little bit about the school fund and what that means. But here are a few bills that look like they're going to pass. One is Senate Bill 1098. This is in response to and to curb individual parent or school districts from taking books out of the library, particularly that relate to any protected class under Title VI, right? So if there is a protected class, removing materials that relate to those students or include stories of them would not be able to be removed. That bill is moving.
Is that an issue?
I think in some places, I think this bill was created because of attempts to do that.
Okay.
Oregon,
Not here.
Not here, no.
Thank you.
So Senate Bill 916, unemployment for striking workers, it's passed both houses now, the Senate and the House. There were modifications in the House, which has forced it to go back to the Senate. And so they are working to put together a bill that will meet and pass both of the houses. And so that one has substantially passed both houses. It is now a matter of the form that it will take. And generally those were party line votes. Senate Bill 1109, this is from the Ethics Commission. Only school board meetings need to be filmed and posted. Other, like if we had a facility committee, something like that, those would not be required. The law had been a little vague on that. That was creating a lot of recording and publishing. And then the Educational Advisory Board, which is the equity committees, those had struggled because they had had a requirement, and it wasn't very clear, that they would be taped and posted like a school board meeting. In the last year, as districts had begun to work on this, there had been a lot of concern to get a representative committee. People were fearful that they would be on video published speaking freely about that. And so what the state did was turn that into a superintendent work committee, and no longer is there a requirement for the posting of a session, the posting of a video or a record of the proceedings. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the new accountability bill from the Oregon legislature, and I'll just kind of go over it. This has now passed both houses, and I think they actually have 2 different numbers. There's a House bill as well, and they have been working together, but currently different bills have passed the House and the Senate, but they are largely the same. If you can take a look up there, what has been added is mathematics at the 8th grade level and regular attendance rates with a K-2 focus. Those are new accountability measures that have been added here. And so those are like the big ones that we are working on, and we have to show improvement on those, and there are consequences obviously for not doing that. We'll go to the next slide and talk through that a little bit. So in assessments, districts are setting goals for improvement to the metrics. And so what the state asks us to do is put together a curve of improvement. Like this would be something we would expect to see each year, year over year. One of the things that is not part of that measure, but also is a part of the bill, is districts would use interim assessments to measure progress. And we have to report on that 3 times a year. So We now have all of our schools showing you iReady results. iReady looks to be on the list of the assessments that they will approve. So we will just continue to use iReady. It'll look a little different. We have to report 3 times a year. So once we get done with the first round, we would report all schools and where the district is. Once we get to the second round, we would report all schools and where the district is. And once we get to the third round, we would publish a final statement. The current, that's our formative assessment. We will still do the state tests at the same time. And that's a lot of testing, right? So when you
Can
get
kids opt out?
what's that?
Can students
And
opt
kids
out?
can opt out.
So
Yeah.
how's that going to be reliable data if they can opt out?
I read some administrative notes around the proceedings, and they had received information that said they were still, in general, statistically reliable.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
but we can watch that. I think one of the great questions, we found last year that the iReady and the state test were not that far apart in terms of what our reading iReady was and then the state testing. It was not like a huge gap because kids do opt out. One of the things that the report card does grade us on is the percentage of kids who participate and complete the test, right? And so Oregon has lagged and has not been able to meet the expectation of 95%. But like, if we're really concerned about that, let's talk about the opt-out, right? Yes,
Would it be possible for the board to pass a policy where the students could not opt out, or is that,
you would be contravening state law.
it's state law,
State
okay,
law.
so it's not within our purview?
Yeah.
Got it.
Let's go to the next slide. So the accountability timeline, and I'm not sure if it begins counting right now, but in 2 years, districts who are not meeting goals will receive mandatory coaching from the state. And so I think we talked about this before. There's a lot of discussion over who that would be who comes to coach you, right? And so are there enough of them, right? And so after 3 years, districts who do not meet goals will have intensive coaching, more intensive coaching, a bigger team, and more specific recommendations that they should follow. After 4 years, the state may allocate and direct the use of 25% of your general fund and your SIA dollars to support those outcomes, right? So that would be down the road, but obviously you would, all districts would have some idea of where they are as time goes by. So that's a ways out, but certainly an upping of the stakes. Let's go to the next slide. So this is a federal update, and I apologize that there's not a lot of clarity in what we're saying, but I do want to just point out that the federal budget process is murky and is really difficult to grab on that, like we know where a bill sits in Oregon and what has to happen for it to move forward. We find this much more difficult at the federal level. So if you take a look, this was updated the other day. One of the things, the 3 words in the title, simplified funding program, mean essentially that now there are not going to be a bunch of small grants that are separately given out to states, to districts through the states. It is now 2 huge block grants, right? The reading title, the special education, and those are large grants. This is just a partial, and I don't think it's a final list of programs that are not included in the 2 big simplified funding program grants. So if you take a look, Title I, migrant education is eliminated. Title III, ELL support, $890 million reduction. Title IIB, teacher and school leader incentive grants are eliminated. Supporting effective educator development, seed grants, we do not have that, is also being eliminated. And then full service community schools, and we will continue to monitor those. While some things are being eliminated, we also know that $5 billion is being included in the new proposed budget for vouchers. And so we don't know yet where that ends up, but that is still alive. We don't know when that would come to a floor vote. And so stay tuned.
How will vouchers move forward through the Fed? We don't know.
Well, they are currently in it, and it is, because it's a reconciliation, new laws in the U.S. Senate require 60 votes. Neither party has 60.
Right.
The reconciliation process, they could not take away Title I because that's an existing law, but vouchers would be a new law.
So they
And
need
so
60.
it
Got
can
it.
come in, and it only requires a majority vote, or 51. So the reconciliation process is, you can't undo laws that pass through the Senate, but you can introduce new things within the legislation, and that's where this is at.
Thank you.
So I have a question.
Yeah,
So do we know if the projection in the state budget for federal funding is consistent with the current proposal that's on the table at the federal level?
yeah, and Jane's going to talk about Title I, which was good news, and so we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But in terms of what we have traditionally relied on, we have not heard about Title II. We have heard about Title III. That is possibly going to be reduced. We have heard that SPED and Title I are flat funded. But it changes a little bit. Jane will talk about that.
Okay.
And I think, here she comes.
Okay, I got a couple questions, or at least, I guess, statements I want to make sure are true. So, one of the things they're going to hold us accountable for is attendance, K through 2.
Yep.
Okay. Have they changed the law that we can actually hold parents accountable, or is there still no truancy laws in existence, and we're going to be held accountable for something we can't control?
There's no new law around accountability on attendance for parents.
So they're passing the buck to us on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I love the idea of accountability, but you also have to give everybody the tools to do it. You know, they want to hold us accountable for math, all the other stuff, that's great. I mean, unfortunately, Oregon has one of the worst attendance in the country, and I would argue that's part of the reason, right? And how can our teachers help the kids if they're not in the classroom, right? And that's frustrating. So Senate Bill 916, okay, so that it hasn't passed all the way yet. So my understanding of that is we are currently the state of Oregon, one of 11 states that allow our public teachers to strike.
I don't dispute that, I don't know.
And if this law were to pass, we would be the only state in the country to pay unemployment to people on strike. The other thing that's very interesting is I'm sure Roger can speak to this, Brad can speak to this, you can speak to this. Most employees pay into unemployment insurance. None of our unions pay into unemployment insurance. Is that correct? So how do they have unemployment insurance if they don't pay into unemployment insurance? Is that just something that's going to come out of the hide of the district?
So currently, we're self-insured, and so our unemployment is funding by assessing a charge against our payroll.
Right.
So, but doesn't the bill, not that you can execute, what's in the bill, because that seems a bit challenged, but what's in the bill says that while they could collect unemployment while they're on strike over the period of a year, they couldn't get any more money than they would have gotten anyway, so.
But our kids wouldn't be in class.
Well, I know, look, I mean, I'm not advocating for a strike here, for sure, but in the way of what the costs are to the district.
If this were to happen this past year, we would not be able to make up the days that we are with our kids this year. Because the money would not exist. And that's my concern. My big concern is us having kids in classrooms getting education. And as this is written right now, that will decrease. And what we experienced here is a perfect example of it. So we can move on. I just think that's an important point to understand. Jane, I think you're up.
Okay. So, so far from ODE, we're still hearing we're funded at the 11.359. That has not changed. The legislation hasn't passed ODE's operational budget, and that could affect schools a little bit. And sometimes late, like the carve-outs, various programs sponsored that affect basic school support. So that could change, but for the most part, I feel pretty confident that the basic school support information we received is what we will be paid on for what we know now. And then, as Andy said, the title funds, ours increased based on our poverty rating increase. And so we will receive an additional $550,000 in title funds. And we will be bringing that to the adoption process, because at this time, we're working with Bonnie and Susie to figure out what that means because of the way the title funds are divided based on poverty rating to schools. How does that 550 affect all the schools, and which programs and staff that are title funded, how that all fits into all of the work Susie's done. We're putting that together. We won't have that by Wednesday, so we'll be bringing the addition of the $550,000 to the board to be included in the adoption process.
What's our current Title I?
Yes,
No, how much?
2.4,
Wow, so it's almost 20% increase?
yes.
Wow.
There were winners and losers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's worth explaining to these guys about the way that you fund titles. You have to fund everybody the same, and then titles on top, right? So you can't, it doesn't help as much as you think in terms of overall general fund cuts. I get that. I don't know if the rest of the board understands that or not.
Yeah, this change was based solely on the district's poverty rating increasing, so.
That is good news. I mean, it's not bad news. It's good.
And that was really all I had.
Jane, I have something. I saw something in the paper that the state head co-chiefs of figuring out numbers had redid the numbers, and it lowered the amount that they were going to have to put towards PERS. Because like right now we're getting like a 1.2 billion increase over life biannual, and about 650 of that we knew we had to go to PERS. But I thought they refigured the number that they were going to be behind, and that decreased things. Had you seen that, or what?
Are you referring to the Senate bill that reduced our
No,
rates?
no, over and beyond that. So they recalculated. Go ahead, Roger.
There's a buy down. There's a one-time buy down of our rate.
I know of no other than the Biden.
And
I
they-
did see there would be funding for that, but, you know, we haven't put money in the budget to
Sure, well-
participate in that buy down.
I actually read an article that said they had recalculated it. Now, how honest that is, I don't know, but it basically decreased it.
I'll have to check into
So
it.
That was last week.
Okay.
So,
Right, so yeah, I'm pretty confident, and I'll try to look at it. I'll Google it here. There was a news cycle on it, and whatever that number is, I think we should put it in our budget.
I will look at it before Wednesday.
okay, yeah, hey, sounds good. So you're complete?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Next up, board reports. Sean?
Excuse me. I didn't have anything super specific. I just wanted to say congratulations to all the students that got to graduate. Being able to be up on stage and watch the students and their families after the graduation, I think for me was the most impactful, just being able to see the impact that a graduation can have on a family and the effort that the family and the student have put in to get to that point. It's fantastic to be able to just be witness to that. So congratulations to all the students and the teachers, the families that helped them get to that point.
Brad?
I'll echo that and just say that's kind of the fun part when we get to go see the graduation and see the smiling faces and people who weren't sure they're going to be there, get it done, and it's kind of fulfilling. I really enjoy that part.
Roger?
I thought it was all fun. First, I want to congratulate Farrah Dixon. She is now a 10-time state champion in track and field. At the state meet, last month, she won the 100, she won the 200, she won the 400, and the South Albany Girls 4x100 relay team was also the state champion. In addition, she had a teammate, my apologies, I have the name, I guess, next board meeting, a freshman who finished second in the 100 and 200. Just very proud of those young student athletes. I would submit that Farrah may very well be the most successful high school athlete that this community has ever seen. There could be a swimmer out there from some past time that maybe has done this well, but just really neat stuff. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the listening session. Is now a time to do that, or is it not a time to do that?
Go ahead.
So there was substantial energy around moving the contingency fund down to 7% from 8%, and I guess I want to ask a couple questions about that. And my position is, what level the fund is not, I mean, we can all project and guess what might go wrong and what we might need that money for. And nobody knows the future for sure, but more concerning to me is the deficit spend that we would be continuing to build into the budget. And if you go from 8 to 7, where's it going next year? And then you're not far from being what the Silverton School District does, or others that have had a hard financial failure in the middle of the school year. And so I would submit that the board and the budget committee should be open to whatever that number is and not fixated on a number, but be very cautious about the deficit spend, if you will, that would be in that budget. I think that the last budget we approved, the deficit spend was around $5 million. Jane, is that right? As approved, it was about $5 million.
Yes, just under, but we
Right.
didn't end up there.
We didn't end up there because of a lot of hard work by everybody on the team. We did wind up at what, 2.5, 3?
2.5.
Right, and so, I mean, that just means that the starting balance is $2.5 million lower than it was the previous year, and that, we're not the federal government. We can't just print money, but I think, and didn't we just move the number, what was it, 12%, and we moved it to 8? Give me a little bit of history on that.
It was 8,
It's always been 8.
yes. And 8% is equal to right around an average of 1 month's expenses, which an auditor recommends you don't go below that. They prefer you have 3 months.
Also affects our bond rates.
Yeah, so the potential to affect our bond rates and what an auditor recommends is not chief concern at the moment. Auditors' recommendations should always be a concern, I guess. But I guess that conversation should continue, I think. And 1 month of reserves is not excessive. We have multiple funding sources that is in fact income, if you will, to pay the bills, and so I don't know how and when somebody gets to a funding a reserve level of lower than 8, but we're hearing it, and at the very least we should seriously consider it and explain why the budget committee and the board would be comfortable or uncomfortable going there. The other thing that I heard a lot, was around the issue of litigation and speculation that there's set-asides in the budget to make big payoffs of litigation we have ongoing. I don't believe that's the case. I've not seen a line item or reserves
For paying out of staff?
litigation.
No.
Okay. And I do think that being in the financial position we're in through largely no fault of the districts or any district employee, but when you attempt to implement those changes, there are some potential unforeseen consequences, and I think we heard at least one of those tonight, and hope that we have a bit of flexibility going forward if there's, oh no, we really didn't intend or want that to happen, to be able to make an adjustment there. And I guess that the Budget Committee and the Board may know that when we see it, but would expect that the Superintendent and Jane and the rest of the staff take a look at if we're at the place we wanted to be when we rolled this out, and if there are any adjustments we need to make. And in essence, think on our feet and be a little bit flexible about how we approach that if we can. And I know at the end of the day, the numbers either add up or they don't, and we're not in a good spot. But to do as little harm possible and prioritize kids in the classroom, I think is a priority of this board and the district as well. So the other thing I would say, and we talked a bit about it at the listening session, was I think that it's crucial going forward, and I now have a better understanding of why it hasn't happened, I guess, after 4 years of being on the school board, but that at the state level, all education interests meet in a room, establish a consolidated legislative agenda for K through 12, and that all of the parties go forward and work to that end. Because if we don't, although everybody who gets elected claims that education is their number one priority, when you have a group that as a group is not organized, but 4 others who are, who one can make happy, I think I know how that turns out, and funding of education is not the winner when that happens. So what I got from that, yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Ryan?
Yeah, I don't really need that.
Okay, I have a few things. First, I'd like to piggyback on the idea that the graduations are one of the real privileges of being in the position we're in up here as board members. It's really neat to see the fruition of a lot of our young adults' hard work come to fruition, and and see the excitement in their face. See the excitement in their parents' face, to realize that they're heading off to something bigger and better, and hopefully we've started them out as best we can. I know for me, a memory I always have is I got to hand my son his diploma. That was kind of cool. I know Roger got to do the same thing. That's neat. It's an exciting time for the parents and the kids, and it's a real dynamic time. So it was an honor to get to do that. I got to visit Memorial week and a half ago. I thought that was really good. I appreciate their staff showing me around. The other thing I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, if you'd pull that up, is how we do things like, we have sports, and that was a topic of the listening session, and our activities fund in middle school is both for sports and activities. For me, our sports we're not trying to train professional athletes. We might have a few, but really what we're trying to do is get them to learn life lessons, right? And any opportunity that we can mentor them, help them do the right thing, get to the right place so that, you know, when they leave as graduates like Roger and my kid are, that they've picked up lessons, I think is real important. One of the things I was kind of surprised to see is that in our athletic code, which is also an activity code, we have some real consequences if people are drinking or using alcohol or do anything like that. Obviously, that's something we want. We want consequences. What we don't have, though, which was kind of surprising to me, is we don't have any consequences for cheating or academic dishonesty. That was surprising to me, and a little disappointing. I mean, to me, one of the tools we have with our student athletes, our student drama people, our chess club, whatever, is if they really like chess or they really like drama or they really like soccer, that they know that that's something that can be taken away if they're not on their best behavior. And I think, obviously, we shouldn't be drinking, we shouldn't be using drugs, and we shouldn't be cheating, you know? So if you could go through that one down. Thanks.
Did you prepare your own slideshow for us?
I did this time,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you discovered this opportunity so late in your term.
Well, I know where the mic off switch is too, and we haven't done that to you. And I'm pretty sure you'd be the leading vote getter.
Touché.
So one of the things I would like us as a board to consider is the idea of having some consequence to academic dishonesty or cheating. You know, I don't want kids to miss games, to miss performances, to miss chess club competitions, but if that will help keep them on the straight and level and they won't cheat or they won't do drugs or they won't, you know, get in the car drunk, hey, I think that's worthwhile. That has to be more important than the game, than the performance, than what it is now. And so that's something I'm just bringing up now, and I'm probably going to bring to the next board meeting to put some teeth to it. That's all I got.
Do you mind if I ask a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
So, are we, and this is a question for you guys, I guess, but academic dishonesty obviously is a problem. Do we have other behaviors that, besides drug and alcohol use, that would impact a student's ability to participate in sports, like disrespect to a staff member or other, you know, other behavioral problems that they would have that would cause them to miss games by policy? Do you know?
We do not have a separate athletic code of conduct handbook.
Okay.
Right? So this falls within the general student handbook. I can't speak to that. I think someone could be suspended out and would receive, like, a suspension would come with it.
Yeah, usually, yeah, I'm aware of, I mean, I was a coach, right? So a kid gets suspended, that's an unexcused absence from practice, which usually leads to missing a game.
Yes.
So that does take care of itself. But what I think we have is, takes a lot more to get suspended than it used to, so that may not hammer like it used to, I would wonder. And I guess I agree with Director Morse about academic dishonesty, but that got me wondering, literally just now, even though he talked to me about this before, but if like somebody's a complete butthead to their teacher all day, they get to show up and play in the game anyway. I wonder about that. And if that's true, should it be?
Yeah. So no quarrel with the discussion of that, but I would think that we would want to engage coaches, teachers in building a proposal rather than just coming in June at the last minute. I think that putting something together, I think that would be worthy of examination. There are other districts with athletic handbooks.
Well, I mean, you look at how they're held accountable for the other stuff. You know, I mean, that's pretty plain.
Yeah.
You know, I guess my biggest point there is, how is cheating or academic dishonesty not as important as that? You know, and for us to have so much wiggle room that we have, I agree that you don't want to make it hard and fast, but making a minimum, which right now the minimum's 0.
Most of our behaviors have a range. Right? And so that range, depending on the severity, creates a range, and that range could move up if it's a second-time offense, those kind of things. So there's some flexibility there.
I guess I have a problem a little bit with what you're saying there. If a kid cheats and he doesn't miss a game, that's hard. So, I mean, that's what you're saying. You're talking about a second offense.
Yeah, right.
Come on. You know, I mean, I know I liked sports. First off, wasn't cheating, but if I missed a game, I would think that would be appropriate, even if I was the kid. So, okay, here we go.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there an academic minimum for our student athletes to participate? I just,
OSAA?
It's
okay,
really,
so there's,
It's
yeah.
very low.
really low. Five, have to pass 5 and
And
8.
what about attendance?
There
Is
is,
there attendance tied to that as well?
but-
I'm just curious, I don't know the answer to that.
yeah,
They have to be there
Okay.
to participate.
they're supposed to be there.
Well, I mean, class attendance.
They're supposed to be there.
Is it something, if we were to make changes to the overall policy, is it something that if we were to look at potentially getting in handbooks for students going into next year, or what would the timeline have to look like? I don't know how soon those get printed, go out for fall sports next year.
Are you directing that question at me?
Open-ended, whoever can answer.
That seemed like getting everybody together to have some input and to look at the other ones, it would be pretty quick. I think it could be enacted at any time.
I think the scope of work and the people that need to be involved is more comprehensive than a single meeting and a single vote at a board meeting, if you want it to be meaningful.
So Bruce, I don't disagree with that, but do you also think that we don't have a policy doesn't speak volumes?
I believe that coaches and building principals work with athletes and other students to make sure that they have consequences that are applicable to the situation at the time of infraction.
Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I think that we need to be very careful. Just because a kid is accused of something doesn't necessarily mean they did it. And there would be different levels of seriousness, if you will, and I know over the years how the district has disciplined students, athletes, has been a difficult and touchy proposition, and so I would be reluctant to just do something at the next board meeting.
Everybody good? More on the topic, or we're ready to move forward? Okay. Next up, committee, school and community presentations, school report, AOL. Bruce.
I'd like to introduce John Dilbone, who is our administrator that oversees our Albany Online program, to give a presentation on the way we do business. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Bruce. Hi, everyone. Our Albany Online is not a school, it is a program. So it's a K-12 program, which is why I didn't put up any logos. We have one, and we're the Owls, but we're a program. So our elementary programming, we have a K-5 teacher, Tracy Ross. She supports our students. She does virtual meetings with parents and students. Students come into Central for tutoring when they need to and want to. They also have field trips that they go on. We don't bus them, we meet at places, so it makes it really more simple because we don't have a bus. And because their driving chaperones are automatically included because they have to get there. We had 45 elementary students this year. We finished with 39. Most of the students who leave us go back to their home building. Some leave the district as well. Parents and guardians serve as a learning coach. So the primary responsibility for the education of the student resides with the parents, making sure they're going through the curriculum and doing their daily activities. And then the teacher, Tracy, works with the student and the guardians to make sure the students get where they need to be. Middle school is slightly different. It's still the parents and guardians are the learning coach, but the district does not provide any teachers. All our teachers are contracted through our service provider, which is K-12. It was K-12, then it's Stride, and now it's back to K-12, so it just keeps changing its names. Students can take electives at their home school. We had 73 middle schoolers and 29 finished the school this year. We have a lot of students that come in and then go out, which is problematic because if they come in for part of the term and go back to the school, the two curriculums don't align, so there's a little bit of hard work in there both directions for the kids. The high schools are under the same policy or plan that the K-12 or the middle schools are. We had 115 high school students throughout the year. This is a record for us, but we've really opened up the idea of students taking single classes with us. Before, if you went to AOL, you took 4 classes, and now you can just take a class that's not offered at this high school. So kids can take a singleton. Most of the students return to their home schools when they leave. We had 83 students who finished the year. A big chunk of that, the ones that didn't return, were the ones that took 1 semester class with us in the fall. And then they left and went back to their home school, so they didn't come back to us second term. So we provide students the ability to take classes that aren't offered at the school in singletons or as 2. We had 42% of our students were full-time. 58% of our students were part-time. And as of June 4th, out of all our high school classes for both semesters, 68% of the students earned credits in their courses. So 68% of the courses turned into credit. A big chunk of those aren't graded out yet. They're finishing them up now. So that number is a little low because the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders and even the seniors still have outstanding classes. There are 3 people who work for AOL. Cheryl Clemenson is our online learning specialist. Wendy Marks is our registrar, and she's half-time. And Tracy Ross is our elementary teacher. AOL has been serving families in Albany for 14 years. Before the pandemic, AOL served about 100 different students a year. During the pandemic, our enrollment shot up to over 700 students that was with us the whole time, but we serviced well over 1,000 kids during that year. We had 12 teachers in elementary and middle school, and we were the 3rd largest school in the district at that time with a staff of 15. Past 2 years, AOL has served about 250 students a year, and we reach out to families to talk about what's best. So for a kid to come to us, they get a referral from their home school, and then there's a conversation with the parents about, is this the best place? Sometimes it's a great place for the kids to go. Other times it's a struggle for kids who don't attend at the building. They're unlikely to attend at AOL, and it just causes problems. Because our attendance rates are basically the same as the high schools are. AOL is adding a second provider and a second curriculum, which will allow us to have 2 online options. Edmonton will be our service provider, and will serve K-12 students, and it will just offer more classes and more options for people. What we also need to do is we need to refine some policies that are going to help our students toward graduation. And that could be when they come and when they go. It could be a lot of different things, but there's a lot of things we're talking about. Questions?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Go ahead.
In reverse order, maybe. What is our credit recovery stuff? It's Odyssey Word, right? Mm-hmm. Why not just adopt that as our second? Why have a 3rd online curriculum?
So I think one of the challenges here is to go K-12.
And Odyssey
And I
only goes
think
9-12?
Odyssey is upper, and so we need to be able to offer 2 choices across all the grades.
All right. Maybe you could go 9-12 Odyssey and K-8, whatever that was. Whatever. You say you're only a program. Are the kids enrolled in the school that their neighborhood school did?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, we found that with our students enrolled in Albany Online, and we treated it like a school, we don't have a lunch program at Albany Online. So by leaving them enrolled at their home school, where they get services like counseling and lunches and all that stuff, and special ed services also come through the home school, they stay connected with their home school, and we can also then serve them as a concurrent enrollment so that they have access to everything at the school. So then during the summertime, when they get grants for students to have meals or extra funding through other programs, that's available to them. Because we had some kids that didn't get that summer funding a couple of years ago. That's part of the reason why we changed. And with Synergy, we have the ability to do the concurrent enrollments, which makes that easier. It also allows the concurrent enrollment also allows for a single report card. So when I take one, if I'm a West student and I take one class, that Albany Online class will show up on my West Albany report card. So it's all connected.
Does that mean all of our AOL kids are Albany kids, GAPS kids?
We have about 16 that are not Albany located students, but in-district transfers. We haven't, since the pandemic, we have not promoted the idea that kids can come in and join Albany Online from out of the district. That would be a potential increase in revenue if we did.
How do
But
you decide where to enroll them if they're not from GAPS?
that's one of the questions that we've had since that point,
Oh, okay.
and that hasn't been determined.
Okay. Then my last question is, if I was a parent and I was talking to you and I said, hey, I want to know if I should send my kid to Orca or AOL, what would you tell me? And
I would tell you, send them to Albany Online, because we have people here who can help you. Your student stays connected with their school. They can still do athletics. They can still do activities in the school. They can do partial classes here and there. So you have a lot more flexibility by doing it that way.
Okay, good. I agree with you. Okay, that's all for me.
I just had a general question. I don't remember seeing, I could just not remember, I don't remember a presentation recently about it, Albany Online. I don't remember the numbers of how has like the attendance been over the last couple of years since the pandemic. I know obviously it was a massive spike then, but since then, has it been growing steadily, declining, about the same?
So our enrollment has been higher since the pandemic and has stayed pretty stable.
Okay. Appreciate it, thank you.
How many,
Brad.
how many students could Albany Online handle with its current staff?
If we send more elementary kids to IST teachers or provided teachers rather than being ours, we could add more. The problem comes in with the amount of time it takes to take attendance and do all the background stuff. So we work really hard, and I should say they work really hard, because personally I think we could use another half-time person at least to maintain that balance. But we've been able to maintain, when we had 700 kids, it about killed them. We did have a third person full-time during the pandemic, and they worked really hard, lots of hours.
So you're at capacity now?
We are at capacity if we don't add more, and we are pushing capacity right now with our current staff. And it's not teaching staff, because most of that is provided by the companies that we purchase, the service providers. But we would need more people if we had significant staff to deal with enrollments and attendance and the background stuff, not necessarily the teaching part.
From a teaching perspective, you have pretty much unlimited capacity.
Yeah, from a teaching perspective, we have seats that we buy seats, so we have whatever they need, and then that company goes out and finds more teachers when they need them.
Okay.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Okay, next up, school report, West Albany High School. Bruce.
Rich Engel, principal at West Albany High School, will wrap up our school presentations for the year. Rich, we welcome you to the stage.
All right, thank you for having
Go
me here.
Beavs.
Go Beavs, absolutely. And dogs, of course.
Get out of here.
Thank you for letting me come in again tonight, as you did last year, to talk about the great things that our staff and our students are able to accomplish here at West Albany. I'm not going to read all of this to you, obviously, but I do want to highlight that our mission is to graduate culturally responsible students empowered to achieve college and career success. That's really important to us, to make sure that we have well-rounded students that have exposure to a wide variety of options for their future. Which way do I go here? Whoops, not that way. There we go. Hey, look at that. So we obviously have 3 school improvement goals. We set very high goals for ourselves. We want to have a 100% graduation rate. I don't know that there's any school in the state of Oregon that can or has achieved that, But if we don't have a 100% graduation rate, then there's students out there that we're not meeting their needs. And so that is our ultimate goal. We've been very, very fortunate. We've been at 96%, 97%, 96%. Obviously, our school report cards are always 1 year behind. This last year, the class of 2024, we're at 95%. I'm very proud to say that the class that we just graduated last Thursday night, we had 343 graduates, and 331 of them walked at graduation. We only have one student that did not meet the deadline in order to walk. That student was actually in my office today working on the things that are needed for completion. So the only students of those 343, that includes 8 students that are on extended diplomas. Those students do not count toward our graduation rate. It's a recognized diploma by the state of Oregon, and it counts as a completer, but it does not count as a graduate. So the only students that we are aware of at this time, I believe we have 3 students over the time from their freshman year till now that are called early leavers that did not enroll in another school that we were able to track down over the 4 years. All 3 of them, 2 of them left after their freshman year, 1 their sophomore year, and we have been unable to track them down. We're able to achieve these high rates. We have a ton of interventions. We have a couple of different staff members. We dedicate FTE to senior study skills. We dedicate time throughout their 4 years. We put a great deal of investment in the freshman year, obviously, and we'll talk about that in our second goal. We do regular check-ins, data review meetings between admin and counselors. We have weekly meetings monitoring their progress over the 4 years. And so go to goal number 2. Number 1 predictor for graduate success is that they are going to be on track as a freshman. On track is defined in our system as having at least 6 credits at the end of their freshman year out of the 8 that are possible. We set our goal probably a little too high. We were at 87% last year. Going into finals, which start tomorrow, we are 87% currently. I feel pretty strongly. Mr. Heisley, who is new with us this year as an assistant principal, has done an amazing job taking on our freshman group and has worked with the Center for High School Success, implementing our 9th grade success team, and I feel very strongly that we'll be at that 90%. We're not going to meet our goal of 95 in all likelihood, but I believe we'll be at 90% of our freshmen will be on track by the end of finals and the end of summer school. And then, as everybody says, if we can see the whites of their eyes, our students will be successful. Director Morse, you brought it up at the beginning of the meeting. Attendance is the number 1 issue across the state, across the country. We're no exception. We had a high goal. We were at 73% of regular attenders last year. We set ourselves a goal of trying to get to 80%. We're not there. We're at 72%. I will tell you, though, that students that are attending 80% or more, we're at 90%. So we've identified that group of students that are between that 80 and 90%. That is so kind of that tier 2, I guess you would call it. That group of students is who we really need to focus in on. We do weekly attendance meetings. We review all the data. We have regular interaction. We have parent meetings between counselors and administrators on a regular basis. We put more of a focus this year on incentives as opposed to having punitive measures. It's had a big success in terms of our tardies, not as much of a success in terms of overall attendance. I will tell you, I'm almost embarrassed to say this publicly, but last year we had over 26,000 tardies as a school. We have cut that by 40% this year. We've changed some of our practices and our policies, but we've also incentivized having students get to class on time. And so I think that's had a big impact. One of the things that we discovered as we dove deeper into our data in terms of our attendance was something that I didn't realize is our students they are West Albany students, but they might be attending AOL on a regular basis. Their attendance is in our tracking. And so we identified that there are 25 students that are Albany Online students that are connected to West Albany that have 80% or less than 80% attendance. And so it created an opportunity for us to have more of a connection with John and the staff at AOL, and to figure out how we can have an impact and help them have an impact, and what that looks like. And honestly, having a better understanding of what does attendance at AOL look like? What is it strictly logging in on a daily basis, or some of those things? So just better educating ourselves on what that looks like, and then working together so that we can have a greater impact. I will say, I wanted to kind of tag on to what John said. Having students be able to take singleton classes has been very, very useful for our students anyway. I know we had several this year that, for a variety of reasons, mostly because of schedule conflicts, we have a lot of students that are taking multiple AP classes and things. And so classes like American Government, for example, they could not fit it into their schedule, and they were able to do that as a singleton through Albany Online. That was hugely helpful for those students. Back to the attendance rate, and I brought this up last year. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Albany Option School plays a huge role in our ability to have our students graduate at a high rate. And I know South Albany High School would say the same thing. Albany Option School serves a great purpose for students that the comprehensive high school setting just doesn't work great for them for whatever reason, whether it's anxiety, the size, just that individual focused attention that they can receive there. So again, just a quick shout out to AOS and Mark Hannon and his staff. So college and career readiness, we try to promote different things. So we have a college and career wear Wednesday. We encourage staff and students to wear, whether it's it's your Oregon State gear. I throw on some Navy gear about every other week. Just trying to promote the options that are out there for our students. We have a brand new College and Career Center coordinator this year, Teresa Davis. She is doing a fantastic job. She came into the job about 3 weeks before our career day, and so that was a tough time for her to take on that role, but she did an amazing job. As I'm sure you all know, the state has passed a new requirement for career education, and so as a district, we had some staff members from West Albany, South Albany, and Albany Options, along with Mr. Schmidt and Stacy Lee, and they helped develop curriculum for a new Career Foundations class that will begin this next fall, that will start with the sophomore class. So we're really excited about that. We're really fortunate. We have a representative from LBCC that is here every single Thursday, that is in our Career Center, that is there to answer questions with our students, to help them fill out paperwork, to basically anything that is related to Lynn Benton Community College. He's there and able to help them through that. And then, like everybody else, we do college visitations. We have AVID classes at each of our grade level. School-wide focus on preparing for post-high school opportunities, access to different CTE courses, and then, of course, the CTE signing day at Lynn Benton Community College. And then through our dog teams, the focus on their 6-year plan. Dog teams is going to be a big focus for us going forward. It has been just because of a variety of different activities, assemblies, and things. So it's tough to make it meaningful for kids if they don't know exactly when it's going to happen, and it doesn't happen on a consistent basis. And so we're really working on that this summer to focus on it. It's a huge, huge job. Tristan Heisley and Jessica Smith and Karen Beatty kind of took on that role this year and developed all the curriculum and did a fantastic job. But it's very labor intensive to try to plan those lessons for every teacher in the building throughout the year. So we're trying to get more staff involved in that. And then again, back to our key priority. I'm going to say it again. If we can see the whites of our students' eyes, they will be successful, flat out. We'll continue with our weekly attendance meetings. We're going to continue with our focused interventions. I would like to, I'm very interested to find out more about the program that Mark is running at AOS with Mr. Hunter. He's kind of his in-house attendance officer. That's kind of a role that's near and dear to my heart. In a past life, that was my role at the ESD when they actually had those positions. And so would love to figure out a way that if we could carve out a little bit of time, whether that's with administrators or possibly classified staff or even certified staff, that can have a focused time dedicated to trying to make sure that we're getting our kids back here in school on a regular basis. Just focusing our campaign, increasing our newsletters home, putting up positive messaging around the school through posters and signs around the building, making an emphasis during our pep assemblies and things like that. And the thing that we haven't really, because so Rhonda Jocks is our fact staff that works with us and our students here, and she is so incredibly I'm not going to say bogged down, but she has so many students that she's working with, and attendance ends up kind of sliding down. And so just trying to work with her on a continued basis and see if we can carve out a little more time where we can utilize her skills and her expertise in that area to help our kids get back. Last here, we're really, really connected to our traditions. We're very proud about this campus and the first graduating class in 1955. We really make an emphasis of that. And those of you that were at graduation on Thursday, I'm sure you heard that. We're very proud of the fact that we have consistently one of the highest graduation rates in the state. We focus on a growth mindset, not just with ourselves, but we want our coaches, whether they're a staff member or not, our students, everybody. Our goal is to get better, no matter where we are. We can always raise our bar. The climate and the culture of our building promotes high student achievement. We have an amazing family and community that serves our school and supports everything that we do here. I said it at graduation. I'm obviously biased, but I believe we have the best staff in the state of Oregon, and I will say that and stand on my soapbox as long as I can. And then we just have an amazingly resilient, caring, and involved student body. Kids are bought in here. They take pride in being a part of the Bulldog family, and they take care of each other, and it warms your heart when you see that. That's all I have. Questions?
Go Redhawks.
It's an amazing school, Roger. I cannot disagree with you.
I know your attendance interventions are largely individualized, and that's good. I think that's the most effective way to do it. But given the sample size you have, has your staff noticed any sort of trends, corollaries around sort of conditions that may lead to more attendance problems than others?
Well, I would tell you this year, seniors.
Yeah.
Typically our senior attendance rate is lower than the others. This year, it was lower than it probably has been in several years. And they were a very, very large group, probably one of the largest groups that we had here. I'm not saying that as an excuse, but it was harder to track down the large numbers of students that were not attending on a regular basis.
Okay. Do you think that was this is probably a stupid question, and I probably know the answer, but was it consistent across all seniors? The ones that were struggling to get across the finish line, or the ones that had already passed the finish line were just cruising?
It was all the above.
Yeah, is everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if you experienced this, Pete, but there was a large number of our students that came in kind of at the beginning of the year, and senioritis was in full swing in September. And so it was a long, grinding year. Our senior counselor, who is brand new in her position, she's been on the job for 18 months, McKenna Fee, she did an absolute awesome job with those students. And like I said, there's only one student that didn't make it across the stage, but we will get them finished.
Thanks. Good job.
Well, first, just congratulations. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
You get everyone past the finish line. I think that's really important. That speaks a lot to you and your staff. So well done. It's unfortunately concerning, and it's not over you or anywhere, it's just, attendance. I mean, that's an issue, and
It
we
is.
need to figure that out. And I think we're trying everything we can. I'm certainly not saying we're not trying everything we can.
Right.
It's just, and it's, as you know, when you're at the ESD, I mean, we've kind of taken away some of the tools to help get kids to school,
Right.
And not that you want to get down to that last tool, but if it's what gets them to school and gets a diploma in their hand, I certainly would argue that's an important tool.
Correct. Well, and I would say that we have to find what the root cause of why they're not coming to school. Is it because they don't feel connected? Is it because they don't feel like they have that trusting adult that they can confide in here? Or are there, family home situations? And so, again, when the number is large that are not attending on a regular basis, trying to focus in. So I think this next year, as I said, we're going to try to really focus on that group, that 80 to 90%, that kind of tier 2 level students. Not that we're by no means are we not focus on the students that are less than, but those are the students that are kind of teetering and will have great success if we can get them here even on a more regular basis.
So when you talked about the freshmen this year, and obviously, everything you read says, them being on track is such a huge key for them to hit
Right.
success. Are most of the kids that aren't on track because they're not coming, or they're not passing, or a combination of both, or what?
It's a combination of both, and we actually, we've done this over the years, but we kind of invested an actual several, 4 different periods. So we identified about 5 weeks ago a group of about 20 students that are freshmen that there were particular classes that there was just no possibility for them to pass that. And so we have a classified employee by the name of Drew Small that works with them individually, and they're working on credit recovery now as a freshman so that we are able to get them closer to being on track. We may not get them all the way there, but if we can get them to 4 credits, that's certainly better than 3 or 2 or wherever they are.
Sure. Well, one of the things I'm hopeful, and I mean, obviously the data will either show it to be hopeful or not, but I hope the fact that the 8th graders coming your way have had a little bit more idea what real grading is will help.
Sure.
Because I think that was an issue with some. I know because I coached the freshman football team here for 10 years, and they were just shocked, that their grades were so bad because they were so used to getting that prop up.
Right.
And many of them, I was shocked to realize, they kind of get to the point they can't recover it. So hopefully you'll have less of those.
Yeah,
but
I would hope so also. And, that transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, that's hard.
it's a huge one no matter what.
Take the grading component out of that. That's a huge transition. And so always trying to look at how can we improve that process for our students.
So,
Go ahead, Roger.
don't mute me. This group of seniors has been through it. They ended school the first week in March of their 7th grade year. They got to come back for 6 weeks of their 8th grade year, and then they were in high school.
Correct.
They missed some pretty important maturity and social skill time, and they were just thrown in it. And so, by and large, they got through it. And so it doesn't surprise me that by the time they get to their senior years, they're ready to do something else. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I raise the issue because it looks to me like being off for COVID for a third of a school year and almost an entirety of another school year continues to work its way through our system. And I'm kind of ending where I started, and that is, have we done enough for those kids at the place they're at to mitigate that to the best extent possible? And I'm sorry you're at the podium, and maybe the question shouldn't be for you, but you're the expert with the microphone at the moment. So your thoughts?
Well, I got to be honest, I don't know that we have, this is my own personal belief, I don't know if we've seen the true impact that COVID has had for a few more years. I'm more concerned about those students that were in first, second, and third grade that missed 18 months of education. They're trying to learn how to read online. So you know, those students are in middle school now, and so you know, we have to continue to focus on providing those interventions for those students and providing whatever each individual student needs to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, consent agenda. Personnel classified.
Move to approve personnel classified as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next up, I2, minutes, regular board meeting, 5/19/25.
Move to approve 5/19 board meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next up, I3, memorandum of understanding, GAEA summer paycheck.
Move to approve the memorandum of understanding as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next up is reports. Equity report. Ms. Kelsey.
Might be at the podium.
Sorry. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Hello. Hello, everyone in the audience as well. At the beginning of the year, I kind of gave you an overview of what this year would look like. So I'll give you some highlights of what we spoke about and was to be expected throughout the year and what came of those endeavors, and then some highlights of what I'm hoping to do next year. Okay, so this year we were fortunate to partner with Jamie Almanson once again. He will be out here again actually June 23rd. He has partnered with me monthly and Bruce to plan support for our administrators. I'm a team of one, and while I have superpowers, dividing myself into 21 pieces to be in all schools is not one of them. So I've really been able to lean on him and his team to support our administrators in growing their comfort in some of these courageous conversations that they have to have with their staff, with families. We've given them opportunities to practice what that looks like in real time. We've given them opportunities to partner with each other, to learn from each other and hear from each other some of the trials and successes they have had in their own buildings, and had some one-on-one coaching with their team in a private setting as well to kind of highlight maybe some of their growth points without having to be in front of all of their peers. So we've just tried to really build in some support for them. Even though we're all adults, we always have room to grow. So these are some of the key pieces that we've worked on throughout the year. And I have some grant funding that we should hopefully be able to support this again next year. I know that it's been beneficial for our team as well. We were able to hear directly from our administrators about how they enjoy partnering with each other as well as with DLT, and gave us some feedback about what we can do to feel more collaborative moving forward. I was fortunate to continue a partnership through ODE funding this year, and that will be continuing for the first half of next year with the opportunity to re-up funding, I believe. We were lucky that ODE allowed us to push support due to the strike. We didn't want to lose time with our team. Wested has been working with GAPS for 3 years now, I believe. They were able to work with them the past 2 years. We've done a lot with that team. They come out quarterly, and we have partnered with 2 schools in our district. We broke it up by level, so middle school and high school this year, hoping to integrate an elementary school next year. There was just there's a lot on their plates and less support at their building level. And so some of the work that we did was looking at how our Cell 5D rubric intersects with their culturally responsive walkthrough tool, and we did a crosswalking of that and did walkthroughs, we did observations of classrooms, we looked at shared space, we looked at curriculum, and the building leaders at both of the schools that we worked with, NAMS and South Albany, were able to also self-identify team leaders within their building that they feel like carry this work forward as well. So we partnered with those leaders in those buildings. It was really important to me that those administrators get to tap into that versus me appointing who we'd be working with. They know their buildings best, and those teachers know their students well. We were able to then gather that data. We did about 25 we did empathy interviews with 25 students at both buildings. We learned quite a bit, and were able to offer that info over to the leaders as they were creating their school improvement plans for the following year. This is something we have implemented in previous years at both of the high schools, and I think by and large, it's informative in a different way than iReady data and all this other stuff that maybe you're not tapping into on a regular basis. And I think the students really appreciate the opportunity to be heard, right? In a new way, particularly by adults that maybe they don't see every day. We learned quite a bit. Students feel that they at least have one or two adults that they trust and feel connected to. Quite a few students brought up the bias incident response protocol and that they've seen a difference, that they appreciate that it exists. They've also spoken to affinity spaces. They spoke about wonderful relationships they have with teachers, counselors. They spoke to their enjoyment of each other. We asked them a lot of questions like, to break the ice, what are you looking forward to this summer? What is something that you've really enjoyed about your school year? If you could shift something, what would it be? If you had a magic wand, what would you change? We heard things like food, we heard things like curriculum, we heard things like longer lunch, but by and large, kids are excited to show up to school. They feel a sense of belonging from affinity spaces, safe spaces, trusted adults. And we shared all of that information with those leaders. And I know that they have kept that in mind as they looked at their school improvement plans for next year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what those look like in the fall and how I can support those schools in carrying out those goals. That's something I'd like to expand across all the schools in our district, but we shall see. I've spoken to you a little bit about the Black Student Success Grant. This was our first year in a 4-year program, but we started halfway through the year. But I lean heavily on community partnerships, similar to Jamie and with WestEd. I'm lucky to have partners in Can Cultivate, Jason Dorsett, the AAYLC leadership, and partnering districts that we've worked with for this grant. It is 3 more years in existence. That has supported expansion of some support to our Black students, sending them to field trips for AAYLC, to do Black Pioneer walkthroughs, as well as the Black Excellence rodeo. 6 Seconds to Ride. It's like an all-Black rodeo that travels the country. I was able to go last year, and we're sending some students this year. I know they're really excited. It's incredible. And just a lot of other opportunities to connect to family and community. I'm hoping to do some culturally responsive like hair workshops, nail workshops, step workshops, touching base with OSU and their BSU that they have there, and hopefully getting some mentorship in existence over in Corvallis. And hopefully next year, if I can maintain partnership with Miss Heather Carmichael, getting some of the parent forums back in rotation, this funding will really help that work continue, and it's incredibly important. So, as always, here we are with some data. I know that high numbers tend to be frightening, but I've continued to say that we're going to see a rise before we see a plateau and then a decline. This is pretty comparable to what last year's data was as well. I think it's maybe 50 more incidents than last year. And what this tells me is that our students are becoming more comfortable with the protocol. There's increased trust and willingness to speak up when they're experiencing harm, that our adults are responding to that, and so there is that symbiotic relationship which then allows us to track appropriately. This is not a fix-all. These issues have existed before I was born and will exist long before we are gone, or long after we are gone, but this does ensure some level of safety net as well as a process to hold students accountable while also offering them opportunities for growth and, when applicable, opportunities to take a break from school space. Public school is the one spot where we ask people from all walks of life to come together and coexist. And sometimes things that exist in communities spill over into space. I continually tell the administrators I work with that our jobs are not to change minds or to challenge family values, but to just set reasonable expectations about state ordinance and laws and guidance that exists that we uphold as a public school.
Are the incidents, each one is individualized and put in a bucket, or can some of these incidents have in multiple categories? In other words, if somebody's being bullied based on race, is it up there as a bullying and a race incident, or just once?
So the bullying piece, what I'm showing, and I think you asked a question about this last time. No, and I appreciate it. This just shows me that the adult who was putting it in did not categorize it beyond bullying.
Okay.
So I don't have a way of knowing, and unfortunately.
Are they forced into one decision, or can they both check multiple boxes?
That's a great question. My understanding is it's one box, but you can put in notes. So like if there were multiple issues, or it was pertaining to, or there was an issue that was intersecting, you would be able to note that. I think that they would likely click the one that is like most prominent.
So bullying probably means non-specific.
Yeah.
And 497 is the legit number. That's
Yep.
not, there's no double, triple counts in there.
Nope, and I even was able to pull from my external. Last year, I think I had 27 external. This year I had like 15, which again, that shows me that teachers and community are also feeling more confident to come to administrators and those who hold the power when it comes to this tracking system.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, this is an ongoing work. I am continuing to develop protocols. I'm continuing to offer more opportunities for people to come in and learn about this. Next year, I hope to kind of have like a running training quarterly where people can get a refresher if they're confused or uncertain. This stuff doesn't come naturally. It takes practice. It takes comfort, which takes time. And we're all human and we make mistakes. So.
Go ahead, Sean.
Quick question about the bottom chart real quick. The incidents by school level, is that a general trend that you see normally, or is that, because a pretty average first half, second half for elementary, but then middle school seems like it takes up in the second half, and whereas high school goes down. Is that normal, or is that just?
I think last year when I was comparing data, the numbers by level are pretty comparable. I think that somewhat is reliant on developmental and age-appropriate behavior. I think also when kiddos start the year, maybe they're feeling good and ready to go, and then as time goes on, I don't really know. I'd have to really sit down and speak with each kiddo. Maybe something's happening where there is continued tension. I'm not entirely sure. But these numbers
kids learn to avoid the kids they don't like, and middle school kids don't. That's all.
Right. That's actually what I hear from a lot of the high schoolers is, I know who these kids are, I just don't interact. Or something else that is true is as kids mature, they learn from previous behavior, or they become a little bit more covert with their behavior. Or high schoolers also tend to just water off a duck's back. They're like, it's fine, it's not going to change. I find that my high schoolers are the ones that I'm constantly pushing to speak up. Does that answer your question?
More or less.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So one of the antidotes that we have in place to support students beyond that catching of safety net, essentially, is affinity spaces. And while this is important, it's once a month at this point. It's not enough. I know that students are hungry for more, and I do know as well that with time, students have also found other trusted spaces and adults to go to during lunch hour. But I would love to invite Heather to come up and speak a little bit about what it's been like to support those spaces this year. I'm incredibly grateful for her and grateful for the budget to pay her for her time. She's wonderful. So just a few moments for her.
Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. All right, thanks for the time to get to talk to you a little bit about our affinity spaces. I have been in GAPS. My children did all their schooling in GAPS, and so I did this as a volunteer until they were no longer in school and was going to walk away. And supporting my children led me to do advocacy as a career, sort of part-time career that I wasn't looking for. But so I do nonprofit work advocating for Black students throughout the state. And so Kelsey came to me this year and asked if I could work with her and help support, especially with losing the position in the equity department. So I would echo, this is too big a job for, Kelsey does a great job at the district level and with admin and support students as best she can, but it would be great to have more people in there to support students. We know that affinity spaces helps their learning. Having safe spaces to go helps them with attendance and it helps them graduate. And so the affinity spaces plays into all the goals that you guys have been talking about tonight. Last year, I worked specifically with the Black student unions at both high schools, and I got to be there twice a month. So I spent once a week I was going to a high school, and so every other week at each high school, at South and at West. So far, there's not an affinity space at Options. I got to develop strong relationships with those students. I got to really hear their voice. I got to support them in a way that I haven't been able to do this year, and also to support the staff that are supporting the students there. This year, because we haven't had extra help in the equity department, I have been doing BIPOC spaces at the middle schools and then the Black student unions at the high schools. So I have gone to each school once a month. And it's just not enough to give the kind of support. When we're talking about racial affinity spaces, in growing in my understanding of advocacy work for these students, Oregon is really unique compared to the rest of the country. This is the only state that had exclusion laws for Black people specifically, and which grew to people of color, and was really, specific on having white people create this state in its creation. And so we have a really small population of Black and brown people that live in Oregon, and it's spreading outside of our urban areas, right? So I can remember when I moved here in 2002, I could go weeks without seeing another Black person. And thankfully that's changing, and it's exciting to see that change. But it still means if you look at our numbers, for Black students, I think it's 3%, and I do encourage, I'm trying to figure out how to do this on a state level. We need to do a better job at capturing biracial children in our data. They're being missed. And so really our Black population is probably higher than 3%, but, and then our statewide for our Latino students, it's about 30%, and then 3% and less when we look at the rest of the BIPOC population. But imagine spending all your time in a space that wasn't created for you and without seeing people who look like you. And so I learn about the Civil War in a much different way than most of you sitting at this table learn about the Civil War. And it's a much different experience for me. And then when I go into a group to talk about it after it's been presented to me, the way I've received the information is going to be a lot different than how my peers received the information, which expand that to every subject, to everything you're going to learn all day long, that you don't hardly ever get to hear anyone with the same perspective of you. By the time you're finishing high school, that's pretty exhausting. And so having an affinity space to go to, it's almost a relief to these students. The biggest thing that I have heard and learned from my interactions with these students is that they want to see more teachers who look like them, and they want to see themselves represented in the curriculum, just naturally. So when we go to read books and seeing more books that talk about the joy of their existence, oftentimes we fall into the habit in curriculum of that, it just is, when we talk about BIPOC people, it's in the negative ways they've been impacted throughout history, when there's so much to be celebrated. So they want to see more celebration of their cultures and more representation of their culture in their learning. And then they want to just be able to exist, which means they want to wear their hair in a culturally relevant way and be able to walk down the hallway and no one is going to say anything about it. No one's going to do a double take. They want to bring in the food that they're used to eating and no one's going to be like, that's weird, that smells weird, why do you bring that here? They want to wear, culturally relevant clothing and just to walk down the hallway and exist, which means helping everyone have a certain level of cultural competency where more diversity in food, hairstyles, clothing, the way we talk, accents, where it's just normal. Or we have a way, of helping the majority culture students understand, how to interact with students who have a different cultural upbringing than them in a way that is respectful and that shows dignity to people. Again, it's just, they want to just be. And so that's one thing that they really like about the affinity spaces is that they can, they get to have some place where they go and there's people who look like them, who perceive things the way they do, who have, a common kind of understanding. And so that's the outcomes that we've been able to provide this year. The other thing is by having, I know one of our strategic goals is to be recruiting more staff of color. And so I just encourage you to maybe pursue that a little bit harder. Being a little bit more intentional about that. And creating a space also not only for students to feel safe, but where staff of color feel safe and want to stay. I know for a fact that we're losing some great staff who are BIPOC this year because they don't feel comfortable. And so I think affinity spaces goes beyond just the student population and goes to the staff as well, that the equity department can be supporting them too. And so I know that's some of the goals that Kelsey has for next year. And so I'm just here to support that and champion that because I've been able to be in the schools this year and work with some of those staff because they are leading these affinity spaces. And just in talking with the students as well. So it, what we're doing aligns with the goals you have. And I do want to thank you all for making the progress you have made. I do want to recognize that. You know, I went to my child's principal in 2016 in elementary school. She had been called a racial slur. And I went to my principal and said, you know, what are you doing about this? And they didn't know how to respond. And I will say that I feel much better about the response of our district to the students. We're not perfect, and we have, well, the bias incident report shows we still have a lot of work to do, but I do want to say that, you know, me even being up here and talking about these things shows how much we've grown and how much progress we've made. But at the student level, there's still a lot that they want to feel that they're not feeling. And so just, I want to encourage, keep putting the budget there, keep putting the time there. It's worth it, and you're going to see the outcomes you want as well with those students, and you're going to retain students of color as well. A lot of Black families choose to go to other districts instead of choosing gaps, and my goal has always been to help this district be a place where families want to stay. So, thank you.
Heather, can you talk a little bit too about how you've seen positive shift of students who have been a part of the affinity spaces or their willingness to report due to the bias incident response?
Right. For high school students, it's taken a lot of work to get them to trust the system. And I do, like, their principals, Susie's one of them, and Rich, and the principals at South, them being willing to do the work to listen to students and follow up when they were reporting things has made a big difference in them being willing to come through. When we started affinity groups and we were trying to encourage kids to talk about what was going on, by the time they got to high school, they're like, I'm done, nobody does anything. They put their head down and they're just getting through to graduation, and then they're out of here. They're not looking to stay in Albany and build families here and keep their dollars here, which I know are important to some of you. So we are starting to see a shift in that, and so they're starting to report more. I'm kind of excited for middle schoolers and once they get to high school. These kids are growing up in a socially minded, socially aware, activist environment, culture, country. And so they have thoughts about what's right and wrong, and they want to be heard and want to make a difference. And so there's been a pretty strong showing of kids coming to our BIPOC spaces. In middle school, they want to learn how to advocate for themselves and how to create the kind of world that they want to see. So they are a little bit more willing to report. I think the middle school principals have done a really good job at working on creating a system that works for students, where they do see that when they report, it's the student who's causing harm is being held accountable. I do see a big difference between high schoolers and between middle schoolers. And so I think the work that is being done with reporting, but then also the work that's being done with social emotional learning, I can see that in the middle schoolers. I can see the effects of that, like that they're learning. They can talk about how they can feel. They can talk about, if someone's bullying them, they can talk about, what kind of impact that has on them and what they want to see done. And they know that people should be held accountable for that kind of behavior. There's no more of like, oh, it's just kids will be kids. They don't believe in that. And so the changes that have been made in the younger grades, I'm starting to see that coming up into the middle schoolers. And so I think that's going to make a big change when they get to high school. They're going to be used to reporting. They're going to be used to saying things. So the changes is there. I've seen that.
We're just at the beginning. We're just at the beginning. But yes,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it also helps that these kiddos who have started affinity spaces in middle school feel more connected to BSUs or BIPOC spaces, so they know that exists in their next space, and it makes that transition into high school easier and safer, which is powerful as well. Do you have any questions for Heather before I go on to my next slide?
Is Heather going to be here for the next slide? Or
Heather,
she
do you mind standing and just waiting for questions? Okay, perfect. I appreciate you.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, carry on.
Oh, okay. So the last slide I have is to speak to a little bit of my goals for next year. I, again, am one person, and as Andy spoke to the deck in his presentation, Senate Bill 732, I'm hoping to really lean into community and students and staff to support all of us in looking at the ways that we can expand this work and continue to grow, as Heather's spoken of before I got here, where we are now, what we have in the future. I also know that every building has teachers and classified staff who are passionate about their students and about equity work and want to partner with their administrators, with myself. And so I'd really like to have 2 to 3 representatives from each school that I'm working with monthly, that they would be kind of an expansion of the work I'm doing in their building. To hear directly from them, I would love to adopt some of the work that I've done with West Ed and other buildings with that team, and look at how we can expand the community of practice and work more collaboratively as an entire population across gaps. I think, I understand where our budget is, and I understand there are people here who are willing to do the work, even people in the crowd tonight. So that's just something I'm looking forward to and excited about. And in terms of the deck too, I would love to see board participation in that as well. We all have to work collaboratively together. We're all here for the same goal, which is to support students, even the ones that don't look like us or speak the same languages as us and come from our communities. So that's what I have for you. Any questions for myself or Heather?
Heather, I just want to thank you. This being on the school board for 4 years has been quite an experience. And getting to know you a little bit and work with you a little bit it's been an honor, and I want you to know that this community is better off for your efforts, and we're lucky to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Questions?
Okay, yeah,
thoughts?
I have one, and it kind of went to what Heather said, and it's something that I get asked by parents, what if we have inappropriate language, what's the process? And many times what the parents and the kids are frustrated with is it's typically the same kid doing it over and over again, and they just don't feel like it's having an effect.
Yeah, so we have our level system 1, 2, and 3, and the reason that I put that into place was that I understand that all kids come from different spaces, but our hope is that, by the time we're having multiple conversations with them, that something is clicking. However, sometimes it takes a little bit more effort. We do have the expectation that behavior isn't allowed in our school spaces. So if there are school buildings or parents who are feeling that that protocol isn't being followed as it should be, they can reach out to myself, and Bruce and Andy and I are happy to work with building leaders to figure out if there's any confusion around protocols, if they need additional support in understanding what that expectation is, tracking, following up, and putting appropriate measures into place, whether that's suspension or at some point expulsion. I know last year we did take a couple of kiddos to expulsion for that behavior. So I do encourage parents to reach out if they're having that concern, Pete.
And that is what you hear most frequently is, hey, this has happened quite a bit, and we haven't really seen some response. So I think it's real important, and Heather, I know that was a concern when you were a parent, and it's a concern for that group, right? And it's legitimate, I mean, if the same behavior is happening over and over again, and yet the kid's not getting shown the door, that's concerning.
Yeah, I think too, something that I've looked at adopting for next year too is, in addition to the protocol, is like I know some of our administrators have taken this upon themselves to put safety plans into place. It's something that happens behaviorally just across the board. But what does it look like to touch base with those parents as well? And say like, hey, I want to acknowledge that this has happened. I want you to know that myself and 2 other people are paying attention to this, your student and these other kiddos who continue to cause harm. This is our plan. We will check in with you weekly, make sure that things are going according to plan, shift as needed. That's something that's...
Personally, I think that'd be really appreciated, and parents that are in this situation could at least see that something's being done and feel like they're being heard, and their child's not just being left to the wind kind of thing. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think part of that was also having principals be confident in being able to have those discussions and talk about them, and I think we're doing a lot better at that. And so we're not at a 0% of situations happening, but I think it's improved.
I 100% agree with what you're both saying, and it's due to your hard work. Our administrators are more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
They know how to deal with it. It's not something that they feel unable to deal with, right?
And they're the ones that can track.
Right, they know the tools, they have the tools, and I think that's really important, and we've moved forward. So I think that's really great, like Heather alludes to, and it's totally true in most things. We're not where we want to be, but at least we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, next up, operations report. Speaker, Dave.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you a quick update on things that we have going into the summer. First, I want to acknowledge Scott Lewis and John Moore. They're out in the audience. If they could just raise their hand real quick. John is a new hire, South Albany High School graduate, and is hired by Genuine Foods. Cool. And they've just done a great job in the transition. We had a first couple weeks, we had some delivery issues with some items, but that has been ironed out a little bit. So first 2 weeks, we were up about 14% with breakfast and about 8% with lunch in just the first 2 weeks. And comparing last year to this year in May, we're up at breakfast about 5% and lunch at 4%. So, and this was without making any significant changes with the food service program in general, just with the quality of food. So I've heard a lot of positive. I don't know if that's got into board members as well.
I've heard a lot from both students and staff that are doing it, that love it, and they're really excited about it. They feel they're providing a better product. It's the unknown that has them a little scared when they're starting to cook meat and things like that, but they're very excited about it. And the other thing I've heard multiple times from the staff is that they really appreciate, is it General Foods or who the
Genuine.
That they're excellent to work with, and they're just really appreciative of that.
Yeah, so these two in the audience have done a great job, and our corporate team has done a great job as well. I also want to acknowledge we formed a more comprehensive leadership team within that department, so I think moving forward, the work that we're going to do over the summer is even going to make a stronger program going into September. We'll be doing more advertising and promoting Genuine Foods moving forward. So I see great things coming there in that department, and of course they have summer food program that's going on as well. Facilities, long range.
Go for it.
So
You bet.
when we shifted food vendors, there was some discussion about shifting job duties and responsibilities for our employees. Have we rewritten job descriptions? Where are we on all that?
We're in the process of working.
Yeah, we're in the process of that. We'll work on that over the summer. So our first conversation, I think, happened last week and went really well. So I think we have a collaborative group moving forward and hope to get that work done over the summer. Okay. Next, facilities, we have long-range facility master plan group. that we did 3 interviews last week, so we had 3 finalists. This week, we'll be trying to come to consensus on who would be bringing to the board to offer a contract to in the next board meeting. It was our intention. So that's where we're at with that process. All of our roofs have been scheduled to be repaired that you folks authorized in the last couple of meetings. And then our big project for the summer is back to North Albany Middle School ventilators. So not HVAC, but heating and ventilation, finishing up that project at NAMS. We did the first half last summer. We're going to finish up the second half this summer. We've added to that list Liberty. Liberty has 6 classrooms that were having a hard time with ventilation in those rooms, so we've added that. We may have to contract that out, but we believe we can get that done as well this summer. There's also some lighting upgrades going on across the district there. Tech department, I won't steal the first one. Kathy will be up here presenting in new business, a phone system install coming forward, so I'll let her do that for us. But main updates there, E-rate, there's some backbone issues that we have, just continue upgrades that'll be done. Classroom tech upgrades are included in the summer. But I'm also pleased with, as I've mentioned throughout the year, we've done a lot of building walkthroughs with each department and visitations, and some of that was identification of just some cleanup into tech within classrooms. And so because they were out in the buildings and they saw that, they were able to then set up a priority this summer to go in and address some of those needs as well. So that was a good outcome of that process. So those are my updates from operations.
So just one, I guess, a question I have, and I don't think I know the number exactly, but one of the things that we were talking about budgeting, and it's kind of concerning for me, is like this couple months ago, you came with us to, hey, we got some roofs that are leaking, and they're leaking so bad we can't even get them insured unless we replace them.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing is something that our budget has to be flexible enough to have a little money to do that. And for this time, we had it within the bond, right? But we're not going to have that anymore. That money's going to be all gone. I forget, was it like $1.5, $2 million, or what was it that we're spending on roofs in the next few months?
Yeah, it's I want to say it's about 1.2 million that we had slated for that. I gave Jane today a spreadsheet that we've been compiling over at operations with consultation with building principals and dialogue. And just these are immediate things. Our list is 15 million right now.
So, do we have a contingency fund or something like that okay.
Yes, we do.
Great.
Not at that level.
Sure, not at 15.
Not at that
I mean, that's the concerning thing for us that we want to have money in the bank to pay for the new roof. Otherwise we can't.
But what we do with that list is we prioritize it.
Right.
And so we knock off those things that we can have budget for that are priorities, and most of that revolves around safety in our buildings. And that's what we tend to focus on and have the funds for.
Great.
Yeah.
Roger.
So how does that all work in the budget process? We don't have enough money to do all the things we want to do in the classroom. And we've got buildings that if we don't take care of, if we don't spend a dime now, a few years from now, it will cost us $1. My experience is in the way of a budget approach, and maybe you're doing it, and if you are, great, but the budget should include a list of projects that will happen and the amount in total not to exceed. And so everybody involved can see what that's about, and just appropriating a line item with very little detail. So which are we?
As Dave said, it's a list that totals 15 million, but it's prioritized.
Right.
But the budget's only 1.5 million.
So we have 1.5 million allocated to do what I would call maintenance projects.
Correct.
And so do we specify where that 1.5 is going?
Yeah, that's based on the priorities of that list, yes.
Is that something that?
To share it with you?
I do think as a budget exercise, it should be into the record in a matter of the,
Yeah.
I think a general truth would be that this district has a lot of old buildings, and there's much that has been deferred. And there's a lot that we can live with right now, because it isn't like breaking, but there is a lot of work to be done.
okay, so there's trade-offs, right?
Yep.
And putting the budget together will, get us to a best place for the district, we hope. Not everybody will agree, but at least you can see, oh, don't spend that money. You may save a few positions, but your buildings won't be insured next year. And so,
An example of that, Rogers, last meeting, we came to you with the 6 items for the bond spend down plan. Those were off of that list. Those were the 6 items that were the highest priority from that list that we have developed in consultation with our building principals. So we brought you the 6 highest ones on that list that we determined needed to be fixed now, and those were the roofs, the fire alarms, and those sorts of things. So we did bring you that list, but we have a list behind it that's prioritized in 3 tiers, and we do that in consultation with our buildings.
And you're saying that past those 6 items that we have now funded,
Yes,
that we have 15 million more dollars worth of stuff that needs to be done, and we're putting 1.5 to it, so about 10%.
correct.
Got it. Thank you.
and the bond money is gone.
It will be.
It will be, yes.
And how much do we put in that fund per year?
So it is 500,000 that's being transferred. That we have SB 1149 $free that we're transferring in. And then the $1 million comes from beginning fund balance and general fund transfer. When Dave and I first started, we established the capital projects fund and with a $300,000 transfer from the general fund.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
You bet.
Okay, next up, new business, the VoIP system replacement.
Good evening, Chair Morris, board members, and Superintendent Gardner. It is my pleasure to come share with you a little bit about our VoIP replacement project that's coming up. And some of it, you need to jump in the Wayback Machine to 15 months ago when we first talked, because we talked about E-rate then. And so I want to start in the Wayback Machine. In the early 20-teens, the federal government started deciding that legacy phone systems were too expensive and started to incentivize people to move off of legacy phone systems into VoIP phone systems, which run over the internet basically. And so E-rate used to cover the payment for our phone bills, but it tapered off and now no longer covers traditional phone bills. And so when I arrived, one of the first things that I discovered is that we run 2 separate phone systems in this district. One is a VoIP system that has gone end of life, and as of this coming December, will no longer be supported by the manufacturer and no longer receive security updates. The other phone system is on a legacy phone system, and I'm not sure if Dave has ever talked to you about our phone bills, but that legacy phone...
I was just about to.
Go ahead and please, it's your favorite topic.
No, you go ahead.
So one of the things that we do see on a recurring basis is about 16,000, that's 16 with 3 zeros behind it, dollars a month in phone bills that used to be offset by E-rate, but that haven't been covered by E-rate in at least 5 years, if not more. So this is money that's being spent by the district. And so here we have 2 phone systems. One is going end of life and going to be a security nightmare, and the other one is super expensive. So both of these have presented me with an opportunity to take a look at these 2 phone systems and see what we can do differently. Other challenges with these two phone systems is there's varied levels of service. So the VoIP system can do more things than the traditional phone system. And I don't know if you've ever visited any of your constituent schools, but if you've been out at South Shore or maybe Oak, you might have heard complaints about phone lines, particularly when it's raining. That's because those phone lines are getting wet and have been degrading over life. So it's also an inconsistent service and pretty frustrating because a lot of times I find myself saying, gosh, we'll call the phone company again. And it took us 6.5 months of arguing with the phone company to fix our last problem out at South Shore. I did mention the high cost of our traditional phone lines, and that's at we have 11 VoIP sites, so that gives us, 12 non-VoIP sites. And prior to this year, we had the ability, sort of, to transition to VoIP district-wide, but not all of the infrastructure backbone was there. That's what I've spent the last year of E-rate working towards, is getting us ready to be able to shift into a fully VoIP system.
Kathy, can I pause you there?
Uh-huh.
So one of the first bills that I paid when I came to the district was a phone bill. And I can remember that day walking from my office down to the technology office and said, what is this? And why are we paying a phone bill? Most districts in the state do go to a VoIP systems. And I was told we don't have the infrastructure to do the change. So this is what Kathy's been working on for the last year and a half.
Alrighty, so let me share some of the benefits of an open source system. So one of the things we were able to identify is that we could upgrade our existing VoIP system and we could keep our traditional old system. The upgrade of our existing system is about $250,000 and a recurring cost, and I'll talk a little bit more about numbers in a little bit. Then we also would still have the problem with the traditional phone lines. So we looked at our peer districts around the Pacific Northwest, and one of the things that stuck out to us is an open source voice over internet protocol phone system called Free PBX. And after doing a great deal of research, and my staff has done an incredible job of learning and collaborating with peer districts, we've identified that this is going to be a really, really good opportunity for us to decrease our phone bills. If we shift the entire district, or as we shift the entire district to our new open source Free PBX system, we'll have a return on investment within about 16 to 18 months, and that will largely come through the decrease of needing to continue to pay those huge astronomical phone bills. But we're also going to have a few other enhancements. The first is that we will have district-wide 4-digit dialing. Right now, when you call from one school to another, you have to do the full 10-digit dialing because you don't necessarily know if you're calling another VoIP school or not. And this requires that we have more phone lines than we actually really need because we're calling out of one school and calling in on another school, and that's 2 external lines that are being used. When we use a 4-digit dialing system, we're not ever leaving our system, so we're getting benefits by also not having all of those additional phone lines that we're paying for. We'll also be able to better manage the experience internally and understand what's going on with dialing from school to school completely. I did mention that we'll be able to decrease the number of outside lines that we have to maintain and pay for because we'll be able to do more calling internally, and we won't have to have extra lines for each school. And by that I mean, for example, Tangent may have 4 phone lines so that they can reach a certain number of calls coming in and at the same time or calling out at the same time. Because we'll be able to pool those district-wide, Tangent, which may really only need 2 on a given day but has a peak of 4, we'll be able to share those across the district. The other thing that allows us to do is aim towards some future system enhancements. The Free PBX is very integratable with additional systems, so we have opportunities when it comes to security, we have opportunities when it comes to working with our intercom system, and so there's a lot of places we can go from here as opposed to having to stop here.
And maybe it's just me, and I'm sure it's just me, but I've got an irrigation system that I need to take care of. It's getting dark, or I'll have a lake in the morning, so if we could move this conversation along, I'll stay for it. We have public comment as well. Otherwise, I better go put on my rubber boots and take care of that. My question here would be, what's it going to cost us? And how soon will we recoup it? And is this an action item before us tonight?
Here you go. Okay, the numbers. If we only upgrade what we have to, it's going to cost us about $250,000 with annual licensing of $52,000 and maintaining that monthly phone service. We also have to keep up our phone servers for our existing VoIP system, and we won't be able to expand service at the non-VoIP schools. A full upgrade district-wide, which will include the software and a complete replacement of all phones throughout the district, with the existing system will cost us around $200,000 for the entire district instead of just 11 schools. Annual licensing costs of about $2,500, and then our monthly phone service, because we will still have to pay something, will go to about $5,000 to $6,000 instead of $16,000. We'll only have to maintain one server, and we'll be at the beginning of an opportunity to do service expansion, and that's going to give us a return on this investment in about 16 to 18 months.
Kathy, on your previous slide, the last bullet was an important point.
Oh, yes. So how are we paying for this? Because you've had this conversation tonight about money quite a bit, and one of the ways, the way we're paying for this is with the money that we should have paid with this 10 years ago, and that's through E-rate funding. Because if you remember last year when we talked about the difference between bare payments, where we pay everything up front and then get a rebate back, and SPY, which we can now do, which we only pay our portion, and then the company has to chase for it. We have that pool of money that we used to do the bare purchasing. We've received those rebates back from prior years. It's now sitting there and ready for the next E-rate project. So this is not general fund money, this is E-rate money that we've set aside and been cycling through the system the whole time.
So there will be no general fund money used that we otherwise could pay to keep teachers in
Correct.
this proposal. Thank you.
So, and that $16,000 is general fund money going to utilities. So we'll be saving that as well.
So we have one of two options, as I understand it. And so what's the recommendation of staff?
Our recommendation is that we go ahead and continue moving forward with the new VoIP system, and we have anticipated an attempt to get it installed before the start of school, but no later than the end of December.
The reason we're bringing it to you, because the purchase of the phones is over $150,000. We need your approval to move forward with that.
So, Jane, is this money sitting in an account somewhere that's dedicated only to this type of activity?
The E-rate funds can only be used for this type of activity.
And what's the balance in that account?
It's actually not even held in our account. It's E-rate dollars that are held for us through the E-rate system.
So
We don't have a line item for it.
it's not our money.
Well, it is, like Kathy said, it should have been spent.
Was it reflected in the budget we looked at last? Our
No.
last budget?
It's,
Okay.
it's,
But was the $16,000 a month in utility and phone bills reflected?
Yes.
So this will change the draft budget from last time? Okay.
Positively.
Positively? Okay.
I move approval.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go ahead and let Dave share our streaming improvements at another time. Thank you,
Okay.
gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up, L2, Board Policy, Speaker Bruce.
I will make this very streamlined for you. I bring to your viewing pleasure 14 board policies that
Yes.
It's interesting reading and work. So I bring to your viewing pleasure 14 board policies that need to be read as a first reading. They are in policies I and J, which is the bulk of the work that we do. They are here for your first reading. These are all provided as plate information through OSBA, and then we work to make sure that they align with or revise our current policy to the needs that we have at this current time. So I present these to you for a first reading.
When will the second reading be?
The 23rd.
Of July?
June.
Next meeting.
I'm concerned about the optics of us passing a bunch of new board policies at the end of a term.
These really aren't new. I mean, they're revisions of existing policy that meet current language.
They're OSBA.
Yeah,
That
these are provided by OSBA, reviewed by their attorneys, and it's very similar to the language that we have. There is no wholesale change. They're very fine line item changes that revise to current practice.
Okay, thank you. No future agenda items, other business. Next up, comments from the public. So we'll start bringing people up. You're going to have 3 minutes. I think Chris will have a time on you, or somebody will have a time on you. I'd like to welcome Kate Clark. Yep. So after Kate is up, next up will be Emily Clark. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Thanks for staying here all evening after the listening session. My name is Kate Clark. I'm a parent here in the district, also a district volunteer. I just was going to have a lot to say at the listening session, didn't have the opportunity. I want to stick this to 2 really quick points. One, I want to thank Superintendent Gardner. Twice now, he has been very vocal about the dangers of this voucher system that may come down, and I appreciate him as a professional and a respected educator pointing out specifically in a rural area like ours without a lot of options, it's very dangerous, especially to our vulnerable students. The second, those who were here at the listening session, you saw there's a lot of emotion around some particular staff choices. And I do recall at our previous board meeting, I believe it was Director Nyquist, voiced the opinion that maybe we shouldn't be making big decisions yet till we know what the income is going to look like before we finalize a budget. And I think maybe we need to revisit announcing all of these staff changes before we really have a firm grasp of what our income is going to look like and what our budget's going to look like. So, and the last thing I will say is that anybody who's taught in a school, you also understand it's not necessarily the classes, but sometimes there are a presence in the building that makes a big difference. I don't know that that was taken into account with some of these decisions, and maybe we need to revisit some of those decisions. So thank you. I appreciate you all for being here and staying so late.
Hey, thank you very much. I think one of the things, just informational for you, I think about the announcements is contract language, right? Like, don't we have to announce it in June? If we have layoffs or cuts or anything like that?
I think we have to adopt a budget.
Okay.
The layoff process is a timeline, prior to the next year.
You guys are the experts. If
And
we
I
can,
think that one is, once we announced that we had 30 days, I think Susie's met that.
I think you're spot on. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll just add too, I'm really excited I appreciate both of you directors for all the time you've put into this. I know it's a lot of volunteer time. I'm excited that our incoming board, we're going to have a couple different voices on there, and I'm looking really forward to the collaboration from all of you as we continue to improve our district.
thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Next up, Miss Emily Clark.
All right, hi, I'm Emily Clark. I'm a student at South Albany High School. I am the 2025-2026 ASB president, along with my friend Skylar Wang. Before I started talking, I had a few questions, and these are just kind of questions that I wanted you to think about. How many of you in the last few years that you've been on the school board have attended school events? How many of you have gone to choir concerts or musicals or sporting events? Because I know, as someone who is very involved in my school, I'm a varsity swimmer, I'm a part of what we call the varsity choir, I'm in musicals, I'm in leadership, I do all these things. It makes a difference when you guys are there. And this wasn't originally...
I've been there a lot.
Yeah. I have a
Great.
son and daughter who's in it. I've been to plays in this room, movies in this room. I agree, it is important.
Great. And it's also, I also wanted to ask, how many of you thought that when a student was coming up to speak, you thought I wasn't going to be professional? I think there's just a disconnection between the students and the school board. I feel as though our students aren't being informed with what is happening in our districts unless we have parents who are vocal in our school boards. And I think, especially at the higher levels like high school and middle school, where it's less, we're learning the basics of being a human, we are now going out into the world and becoming adults. I think learning about what is happening in our communities, in our politics, is very important for our development. And so I just really want to see a higher amount of communication and the lesser miscommunication with students and school board and parents and staff. And that's another thing. And this wasn't what I was going to talk about at the listening session. I was going to talk about my experience with the performing arts being something pushed to the side in our community, but I'm not talking about that anymore. I'm talking about just overall being a student and feeling like I don't have a voice in my community because I am a child. Legally, I am not allowed to vote. I'm 16 years old, but I think having those opportunities is really important.
Are you making a recommendation? Like, what does that look like? Because you know we have student school board members.
Yes, I know. I am one of them. I'm the ASB president for next year. And I'm not making a recommendation. I'm just saying, trying maybe if you can, to make it so students are more involved, or so just that it's more publicized to students. Because I know that a lot of us don't know what's happening.
So I'm all for it, and I think all of us are for it. We want you to be all involved. And really one of the things that probably is most important is you look at us and how we get our information is probably different than how you get your information. And I know that just because I watch my kids, right? So I would tell you, you know, this is on YouTube. You know, they're always welcome to come. You're the representative. I know Becca sends out a message on what happened to the board meeting. I mean, we're all for sharing the information. That makes perfect sense, you know, and the fact that you're excited about and want to advocate for that and you're in the position you are, that's awesome because you can help us do it. You know, I don't think you're going to get any pushback on us being willing to help you share that message or the message from the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Mr. Tom Cordier. After Tom will be Mr. Ken Beiser.
Hi, Tom Cordier.
Welcome.
Hi. There's a big pushback in other parts of the country against all the woke stuff and the DEI stuff. And tonight I heard your speaker say that students of color must learn to advocate for themselves. Guess what? That applies to every student, not specifically students of color. The information that was provided tonight on the screen on the bias incident total and their impact. The comments talk about current, there is a growing willingness of students and that it is an ongoing work. But tonight, only 1 year's worth of data was presented. There was no month over month. There was no year over year. So there's no evidence that there has made any difference in the few years that this information has been collected. And that's, and so it's soft data that people feel like they need to do something or feel something, but there's no evidence provided. There's no statistical information given. I don't like to see union members coming before this body wearing union t-shirts. That is confrontive. It's not collaborative. I've been fortunate to give a major business sales plan in front of all of our employees at Lynn Benton Community College a few years back, and there was no union membership wearing that says, that's who I am. And I think that the teachers ought to stop doing that, because it's been done a number of times, most specifically out at Timber Ridge. And I don't like that as a member of the community. And one speaker at the earlier session today said, gee, when the minute we talk about we're losing money, then automatically it's the number of teachers that are going to be fired. I agree with that comment. It shouldn't be done that way. It shouldn't be that way in the newspaper. There are some ratios out there that deal with frontline workers and administrative, and you guys have a couple of unions, and so I don't know. I haven't ever seen any data on the makeup of the ratios of admin to frontline workers.
We got asked that, and we're going to present it at the budget meeting, I believe, coming up on Wednesday. Because I agree with you. That's important data, and we need to know that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ken Beiser.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Ken Beiser, and I teach here at West. I wanted to address the board tonight regarding the public comment section of last month's meeting. It's disappointing that the board violated its own policies by allowing public complaints against specific staff members. In my opinion, this was done in retaliation for our strike action and does nothing to help us move forward or begin rebuilding trust between management and the association members, which I know school board members have spoken with union leadership about. Actions like what occurred last month only work against that goal. To follow up on the email that was shared with you last month, I want to clarify a few things for our community. First and foremost, GAEA did nothing wrong. The contents of that email were not a surprise to the district's negotiating team, as they had been communicated clearly and repeatedly throughout the bargaining process. The reason the email was sent out is simple. After management shared updates that misrepresented our position and cast GAEA in a negative light, many staff members came to me with questions. The email was intended to provide transparency and push back against a narrative that undermines our efforts to fight for safety, manageable class sizes, and meaningful solutions to long-standing issues. The irony of calling out educators for using a proposal packaging strategy in negotiations is that it was a technique to pressure management to actually discuss class size and safety issues for students rather than just money. Educators always put their students first, and that angered management during negotiations, who refused for months on end to agree to language to improve those issues. I am proud of all the educators that I stood with who took the brave step to put students' needs in front of their own. In the spirit of giving emails to the board to be put on the record, I have one that I would like to hand out as well. GAPS employees are sent this email from the district before every board meeting, and if you read the highlighted portion at the bottom, it says, quote, "Commenters may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but," and this next part is bolded for extra emphasis, "the board will not hear complaints criticizing student groups or individual district staff members. Concerns and complaints will be handled through the following steps outlined in Board Policy KL and Administrative Regulation KL-AR1. Being the person that was named at the previous board meeting after the gentleman had run out of time to speak, the board obviously failed to uphold not only the policy they expect their employees and members of the public to follow, but they also broke their own rules for public comment in allowing him to speak beyond his 3-minute time limit. What troubles me is this. If the naming of the personnel or the specific complaint were against a member of management, a member of the board, or the superintendent, I firmly believe that you would have stopped the speaker and invoked your policies for why that would not have been allowed. The fact that you ignored multiple rules that you have put into place when it's a teacher and member of GAEA that was on the negotiating team is not only inappropriate, unprofessional, and feels like retaliation, but is a level of hypocrisy that I hope the community understands cannot be allowed to continue if the relationship between teaching staff and management is going to heal following the strike. I have one simple ask of you tonight. Please adhere to the policies you expect everyone else to follow during school board meetings moving forward. Thank you.
So I have a question for you. So we didn't have this issue come up for probably 42, 43 months because we didn't allow people to approach with an open mic and say literally whatever they want in 3 minutes. And so as long as we have the provision that allows this opportunity, we run the risk of people saying things that would violate board policy. And so
Well, I think the issue, if according to my statement, and if you go back and watch the video last time, is that my name was brought up after the 3-minute time limit was set, and the gentleman was able to continue talking beyond that. And so board policy was violated because your own rules were violated. So had the first thing not happened, the second one wouldn't have. Do you get what I'm saying?
So how would you recommend that if somebody is, I don't know what it was, 30 seconds or 40 seconds over, that what we...
Well, I guess, I mean, I also said in my statement that, like, if the comment had been about a member of management, the superintendent, a board member, that it would have stopped. And
Really?
the fact that it was, that's my opinion. I mean, I don't know.
I've sat here and had all kinds of things said about me in a board meeting, and nobody stopped it. So,
Well, that's your power as a board member, I suppose. I don't know. I'm going off of the rules, the emails that we get from the district, what it says in bold, and then it's not followed. And so again, I'm just asking that you adhere to the rules that you put on everybody else to follow in board meetings.
For clarification, this discussion violates board policy.
Well, I was here for public comment, not a discussion.
I think board policy should allow this kind of conversation, but I'm just telling you that there are sometimes practical things, and sometimes, like Roger says, people get up there, have the microphone, there's no off button. And so sometimes this stuff happens, and we do our best to try to accommodate everyone and have conversations. But I just wanted to point out that this conversation you and I are having is against board policy.
Well, I apologize. I wasn't anticipating having a conversation. I just came up with a comment.
It's not your fault. You're not on the board. It's our fault.
You're not in trouble. It's just, I'm just pointing it out.
I understand what you're
just
saying.
pointing it out. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Hey, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You have a good day. Next up, Dana Lovejoy.
Good evening. I'm Dana Lovejoy, president of GAEA, and I stand before you tonight representing nearly 600 certified staff in this district, probably for the first time publicly since the strike. Speech language pathologists, counselors, nurses, fac staff, teachers, all of us covered by our contract, stood together not for personal gain, but to make the district better. It was hard on everyone, students, families, staff, and the broader community. But we had wins. Through that process, both sides of the table gained a deeper understanding of the complex challenges that we face. Our new contract includes several collaborative committees, an opportunity for the people closest to the issue to help craft real solutions. That's a meaningful step forward. But we cannot afford to ignore what's still happening in our schools. We continue to operate schools designed for the 1900s while trying to meet the needs of students who are growing up in the 21st century. A lot has changed, and for far too long, we didn't keep up. Now, when we finally have a chance to start the conversation in earnest, you're eliminating 27 positions that this community desperately needs. Tonight, I ask each of you to reflect on your vision for the district. I see the phrase building bridges in district materials, but I have to ask, with whom are we building these bridges, and where are these bridges supposed to lead? The educators I represent share a vision, schools that are safe, not just physically, but emotionally, for all students and staff, regardless of race, gender, background, or identity. Schools that families are proud to send their children to. Schools where our students feel seen, supported, and inspired to thrive. The Budget Committee meets in just 2 days. Proposing an 8% reserve while cutting positions that directly serve students is out of step with the community's needs. These funds are meant for students, not for someday. I know the incredible work being done by all school staff, not just those that I represent, but also our classified colleagues who work alongside us every day. If we're serious about moving forward, we need a shared vision. That vision must be clear, inclusive, and grounded in mutual respect. That respect may take time to rebuild. Some of you are nearing the end of your terms, but your responsibility doesn't end when your seat does. The choices you make now shape our schools for years to come.
Thank you. Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Nope, you gotta read something.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, regular board meeting. Information to share at the end of the meeting. After adjournment, the board will meet in executive session with legal counsel pursuant to ORS 192.660, parentheses 2, to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer of any public body, a public officer, employee, or staff member who does not request an open hearing. Now, I'm
Mr.
ready for a
Chairman,
motion.
Slight amendment. It was paragraph 2I.
Paragraph 2I. Thank you very much. Looking for a motion?
I move to adjourn tonight's meeting and go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everybody.